vibrant organization here in Metro Detroit. So welcome, Perry.
Thanks for having me. Good
Really,
to be here. Happy Monday morning musing to everybody.
it's the M's. So you have been leading JFS almost 10 years now. You and I have known each other for over 15 years in your roles there, and obviously unique times. But can you just share with those who might not be as familiar with JFS, the mission and what you're privileged to be able to do as an organization?
Sure. Our mission, while I won't read or recite the mission statement, basically, intuitively, we all know, I think, that we have a mission of helping people. We help people within the Jewish community and the broader community. All of us from time to time are going to be hurting in our lives, some worse than others, some because of pandemics, et cetera. But our mission in those moments is to partner in whatever way we can with other organizations too, to help people to make ends meet, to get back on their feet.
One of the things I've been most impressed with in Detroit and the Jewish community from the day I got here is the collaborative effort I see among our community, our organizations, our federation, our congregations together, and the ability we have to lift each other up and help each other. And JFS has always been a resource I've turned to, sent congregants to, connected people to as well, but also an organization that's given us ideas, programs, things that we've engaged in that I really appreciate. And I love seeing the umbrella that's gotten wider of JFS over the years. Can you talk about what you're most proud of that you've been able to accomplish? Big picture stuff, and then we'll come down to these most recently time.
Sure. I agree with you that the special sauce of the Detroit Jewish community, which doesn't mean that other Jewish communities aren't great in their own right, but the special sauce of the Jewish community, for sure, the human service community in Detroit, is that collaboration pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and anytime. I'm proud to say I'm one guy at Jewish Family Service. There's 120 or so colleagues that I have, and we don't do any of this stuff without any of our sister agencies within the Jewish community, whether they're federation, constituent agencies or not, or folks in the broader community too, because we as a Jewish organization live in this broader context. And so some pride points that you're asking are that, one recent pride point is that we're still serving Holocaust survivors. So there's probably 500, 600, 700 Holocaust survivors in our community. Jewish Family Services helping 400, 500 of them in a year. We get funding from the Claims Conference in New York to do that. In the last couple of years, we have been able to not just help Holocaust survivors in metropolitan Detroit, but in a 15-state region with home care services. And they called on us and they said, can you please do this? And our answer, of course, was we're honored and humbled and privileged to do this very sacred responsibility. So that kind of partnership doesn't happen without funders and other organizations in these 15 other states, but that's one of scores of examples that I could talk about post pandemic, and then during the pandemic it gets a lot different.
Yeah, it's interesting. I totally forgot about that. I was visiting two survivors, and they were not able to drive these days. This is probably in January last year or February, before the pandemic. And this survivor is more traditional, davening daily, and he was being picked up. JFS was helping get him to shul and to the doctor and doing things. And he was so appreciative and shared that with me when I was visiting them, and really warmed me to see how those connections were happening, what was going on.
It's this honor, behind the scene work of driving somebody to daven or to a dialysis appointment or whatever we drive an 85-year-old, 90-year-old to, whether a Holocaust survivor or not. We, in good times, are doing 30,000 rides a year to get people to doctor's appointments, because not all 80, 85, 90-year-olds can drive on their own. So it's quite an honor for a Jewish Family Service to put a Ford Flex on the road and have Nathan, walk up to someone's house, put his arm out, get somebody into the vehicle and drop off at Shir Shalom or Dr. whoever's office.
A driver was sharing with me recently how humbled they were to be in the presence of survivors and to be driving someone and talking and learning that story as well. And just an individual's, they learned from this woman, her kindness. And I thought, wow, how amazing. Here is someone who's giving of their time, who's doing some important work, and they're seeing themselves as the one getting the blessing of being with a survivor. And I think those connections are so significant and important, especially, knowing that our survivor community is so elderly right now. And
Right.
again, those firsthand stories now, those witnesses who become the next witnesses too for us. Really beautiful to hear that reflected upon.
Absolutely. Among all of the sacred work that a Jewish Family Service in Metropolitan Detroit does, there's nothing more sacred than helping Holocaust survivors, whether get to shul or to the doctor's appointment or to get a meal delivered into their home. And like you said, our role as a helper and as a witness. I mean, that's really the crux of the work of a Jewish Family Service, is to be with somebody, whether face to face, three-dimensionally or two-dimensionally, is to witness somebody's life and to try to add some value and some kindness to it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Um, so obviously all of us had to pivot and change some of what we focused on and how we're spending our time these past 9 months. I imagine this has impacted you all tremendously. I know it has
Sure.
tremendously. So one, what's been the biggest challenge for you, and two, what you've been able to really been focus on in this time too?
Sure. So, get out your bingo card. I might say pivot again as well. Just did. So the biggest challenge starting there, because that's the question, is older adults. So most of what Jewish Family Service does, if we changed our name, we change our name to Jewish Family and Senior Services, because the biggest thing that we do is we help older adults to age in place, whether a Holocaust survivor or not. So the biggest challenge for us, of course, has been, and I pick on 80, 85, 90-year-olds, is helping those older adults to age in place with dignity and respect in their home before the pandemic. So lay a pandemic on top of that, somebody getting older and inevitably frailer in a pandemic, even more isolated, older and frailer. And it's been a complete challenge. We've risen to it, but we're not able to, and this is what, keeps me up at night proverbially, we're not able to do the exact level of service because we're not putting all of our people sort of, so to speak, in harm's way and don't want to infect anybody potentially. So that's the biggest challenge, is helping older adults who are in their single family homes and condos and apartments in Oak Park and Farmington, wherever people live. And we're really worried about that. Thank God there's a vaccine on the way and there might be, a growing light at the end of the tunnel, but that's been the big challenge. In terms of the next part of that, uh, risen to the occasion. And I go back to your special sauce comment about Federation and our sister agencies. So, the bingo card says redeploy. We've been able to redeploy many of our employees, our drivers specifically, to help other organizations' missions. So what does that mean? So Yad Ezra, a beloved sister agency of ours that is all about food insecurity and boxes of food to make sure people don't go hungry, they changed their model so that they're not having you, me, whoever needs that box to come into Yad Ezra. They're now delivering those boxes. So they're relying on us and our workforce, our drivers, to drive those boxes of food to the folks that need them. So we've redeployed our drivers, win-win-win. We've been able to keep people employed and keep people to have food on their table. Similarly, last thing for right now, the National Council of Jewish Women has a Kosher Meals on Wheels program. And to get those, you come to Jewish Family Service or to J-Help to get enrolled. And since the pandemic, Jewish Family Service drivers have augmented volunteers who used to drive. So we're now schlepping home delivered meals on wheels to people who need food. And I can't think of two more important things that a community, who cares what our first names are or last names are, a community can do than to get food to people who can't otherwise get it on their own.
Yeah. And people often assume, well, those aren't challenges within the Jewish community, but they are great challenges still, like in every community, and something we have to really be able to focus on. And we're proud at Shir Shalom that we become a food pantry in a sense, as there's been so much food in abundance, but the regular pantries can't house 4,000 pounds of pasta. And so, well, FEMA's dropped it off at Shir Shalom because our social hall isn't being used for parties right now. So why
Sure.
not? So part of a social hall can be, and thanks to Hazon actually made these partnerships for us with Ren Hack to make that a reality. I know
Oh,
Empire Packing, they're using their freezers there to store meats and stuff too. And thanks to Ken Popper's great work and volunteering that way too. Really, it's tremendous.
all amazing partners. One thing you said that I want to pick up on, that when I first arrived at Jewish Family Service 29 years ago for my first tour of duty as a clinical social worker, I, like every Jew or non-Jew, was somehow raised in the back of my mind. I thought, oh, Jewish people, we don't have problems. We have resources. We don't have problems. We don't hurt our spouses. We don't abuse substances. And once I got to Jewish Family Service, one, I realized that of course Jews have problems. And two, I realized that a Jewish human service organization, Jewish Family Service, helps the broader community. So I'm here to say, as the guy who runs Jewish Family Service with a lot of other people, that Jews don't take a pass on any social problem. And we see all of that at Jewish Family Service. And it's unfortunate, and it's fortunate that we're able to do something about it with partners like Shir Shalom and Ren Hack and everybody else who's rolling up their sleeves.
Yeah, no doubt. You touched on one thing that we haven't talked on at length yet, and that's mental health. I know it's a real priority for JFS2, real concern that many of us have today, right? And especially with our youth, knowing the stresses that exist and have been exacerbated by them not being in a community, not being in school in person and stuff too. What have you guys been able to do, and how have you expanded that, knowing that's a real challenge today?
Absolutely. So let me just say, to answer that, the three big buckets of services that Jewish Family Service provides for the 25 or 30 services that we provide within these buckets. One is older adult services. Two, it's safety net services, helping people to make ends meet who don't have a couple shekels to rub together. And the third big thing would be mental health and wellness services. So we, in other words, have an outpatient mental health clinic. We have behavioral health specialists, counselors, psychotherapists, call them what you will, who, of course, and here goes the word pivot, who at the beginning of the pandemic pivoted. And so we are now doing more than ever mental health counseling on Zoom or through FaceTime or through the telephone. And so we are as worried as I am about older adults who are getting frailer the longer that this goes on. And by the way, this pandemic will have a huge tail. So God willing, we'll all be vaccinated in a year or so and be back to normal in 2022 or something. We know that the tail of this, people losing their jobs, people struggling with their mental health, older adults, frail or older, will be years and years. So for the mental health work, we've been able to not only just do what we normally do in 2 dimensions when we usually do it in 3 dimensions, but also offer support groups for people via Zoom, support groups for groups of employees at sister agencies. Lots of content that we're creating and putting out there in the cyber world for people to sort of get some tips on how to, if you will, literally and figuratively breathe deeper than they're able to, because we all need to be breathing much more deeper than we're currently doing.
No doubt. Overwhelming when I think about that, and concerning, but I'm glad we're in it together. It makes me think of our mutual friend of blessed memory, a mentor to both of us, Norm Kean, who retired before he passed away as executive director there, as running JFS, but who was a man who would never give up on the challenge, no matter how big that mountain was, and always saw a way through it, over it, around it, and just persevered. And his life and his mission was to do that. And I love, when you all created the award with his name and honored him in that way and his legacy, and hearing that. And I think it's so much of what you carry on as an organization. And I think that we need to be doing together.
Absolutely. So Norm Kean, we all stand on shoulders, right? And so you and I, Norm Kean was a Shir Shalom man, a Jewish Family Service man of blessed memory. I'm sure Mary Kean is watching from Cleveland right now. And I'm so thankful that you're bringing Norm into this room, because I work at a place that Norm built. And I think about Norm all the time. When I go to Jewish Family Service, I sit in Norm's office and he's always looking over my shoulder, whispering in my ear. And it takes all the Norms in the world to continue to wrap arms around all the people out there that are hurting. And that's exactly what Jewish Family Service does.
I can't think of a better way to conclude our conversation than that, as a really something we got to keep doing, right? And carry that legacy forward, and know that we have lots of work to do together. I'm glad that you are leading our community in this, and helping us find ways even more to help others. And know that there's, of course, a lot of work to do, but we're really privileged to be a part of this community where we can. J Help, you mentioned, you can go online and see J Help. And one, if you're looking for help and resources on any of these things, any of these levels, but also if you're wanting to give of your time, of your resources, ways to give and to help too. Really, what, about a year ago, J Help went live online as a
Sure. You don't need in other J Help, and I know we're moving on here, but you don't need a secret decoder ring to figure out whether to call Hebrew Free Loan or Yad Ezra or JFS or JVS. Get to J Help, and J Help will J Help you no matter where you need to go.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, Perry, this morning. I really appreciate it. We appreciate it, Monday Morning Musings, especially in this week of Hanukkah. Wishing everyone a very happy Hanukkah. That it's so dark out that we have responsibility of bringing light into our world, and we're able to do that. Able to do it because we have a strong community, because we do find ways to bring light into our world with that image of our Chanukiot, with each candle that's illuminated there, and what we have responsibility in doing. At Temple Shir Shalom, we'll continue celebrating Hanukkah together, 7:30 every night. Log on to this YouTube or to Facebook, and you'll see different members of our community coming together and lighting the Hanukkah menorah with us. And for any of those in Shir Shalom who want to light with all of us together, email me or Rabbi Daniel, and we'll send you the Zoom link for the last night of Hanukkah. We'll have a huge group lighting our Hanukkah menorah together. Looking forward to that. Everyone, please, Chag Orim Sameach, bring light into the world, following the missions of both Temple Shir Shalom and Jewish Family Services.